All right. As I said to you, I'm actually looking back to the end of last year when Erica Stanford, the National Party, said, and it was very much a National Party initiative and very much an Erica Stanford initiative, that the new incoming government would ban cell phones in schools. And I'm looking back on a welter of articles at the time that said this was a really bad idea that was published in mainstream media from everyone from teacher union groups to school principals to pupils to parents. It seemed that the media of the time were consumed at the end of last year was saying what a dreadful idea of this and how stupid could you possibly be. Well, yet another school principal, this time the principal of Mount Albert Grammar in Auckland, has turned themselves into a bit of a believer and said, well, we've run it all year and dear Lord, the school's changed and the culture's changed of our school and very much for the better. And if that is a universal experience, well, we don't know. We'll find out if that is the experience of school principals throughout New Zealand. We're joined by Vaughan Couillault, who is the president of the New Zealand Secondary School Principal Association and the principal of Papatoetoe High School in Auckland. And he joins us now. Vaughan, thank you for joining us, and I know you're busy, so I appreciate your time.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. Listen,
Good.
Interestingly, the principal of Mount Albert Grammar comes out and says, I wasn't sure about this, but, oh, God, man, it's changed my school for the better. Is that what you're getting from your principals in your association?
Look, if I was being perfectly honest with you, at the end of last year, I can remember getting to a bit of a to-do at arm's length with the National Party around saying, look, I don't think it's a wise spend of public money because we can already legislate for that ourselves. I would rather we had a look at the vaping issue because that's what kids are wagging class for. So at the time when you mentioned all that noise, I was a bit of that noise, not because it was a stupid idea from a devices aren't the problem, since I thought public purse could be better spent dealing with the vaping issue, which is actually killing kids, as opposed to cell phones, which is just distracting them. However, always being one to take it on the chin when something goes well that I didn't think it would do. Well, actually, I didn't think it would go badly. I just thought money could be better spent elsewhere. So in terms of my lived experience on my campus, it certainly has made things easier for teachers in the classroom. Kids have sort of bought into that a lot more than when the rule was just a school one. So given that it's now a piece of public legislation, if you like, kids seem to be buying into that. And we would get, in my school of 16, nearly 1,700 students, maybe a dozen phones confiscated a day across the school, which is a very small number. It's made it a little bit more difficult out on the grounds at interval and lunchtime when we weren't actively policing that in the past. But on my campus, there wasn't a whole lot of sitting down disengaging high screen time at interval and lunchtime anyway. And so it hasn't been that huge shift on my campus, but I have colleagues where it has been noticeable. Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's got 3,400 kids at his school. It's a big school, isn't it, Mount Albert Grammar?
It's a big engine, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he says that he's noticed a significant change in culture since banning cell phones in schools. School breaks are more talkative, children are more interactive, students are more active, stop physically. They've even had to put in more handball courts to meet the demand of kids playing sports at lunchtime. Is that your experience at Papatoetoe as well?
Yeah, I'd say it is. If the number of people crowding around a handball court is a good indicator of not using cell phones, I have done the same thing. We've had to repaint our handball lines. They're getting smashed, which is great. And we've added some more in wherever there's a bit of concrete space. So that's an easy bit of physical activity that can involve a significant number of people, a decent-sized peer group, all of that sort of thing. So that certainly has been my lived experience on the ground here. So, I'd have to say it's doing all right. It's not quite as easy to police it, as I said, at interval and lunchtime, and sometimes you can create conflict situations. And the side effect of creating a new rule is that often adolescents will break those rules. We all remember what it was like as an adolescent. And as a result of that, you get recidivist offending. So there's probably been a bump in a number of stand-downs that have occurred for inappropriate device use that may not have occurred previously. But I think it's probably a net gain, to be fair.
One issue with the cell phone that somebody's described this morning to me is that they've got a son who's in year 13. and colleges require their kids to have a device for school. Quote, my son has a very good desktop computer at home, so I bought him a reasonably high-spec phone so he could use that as his device at school, but it isn't allowed to use his phone anymore, and I can't afford a good laptop too. Now he has no school device. I would assume in a situation like that you'd simply provide one at the school, wouldn't you?
Yeah, either provide, or there is scope within the rules and guidelines for a registered teacher to provide an exemption. And so if that family communicate clearly with the school and say, look, actually this is the device that he does his learning on. I bought him something Pro Max, this or big screen that, and this is how he engages. Then you can get an exemption, so that's possible as well. So it's not an absolute ban. Exemptions are possible, and I would encourage that person to communicate directly with their school.
Okay, and finally, the curriculum, you don't have, the curriculum guidelines that we've talked about as well are coming in for junior schools, so not so much senior schools.
Years 0 to 8. Yep.
0 to 8. So you're not affected by that. But one of the things you were affected by was the redoing of the NCA curriculums. Now, you'd be intimately involved in that. Is that work still underway, or has it been put on pause while we do the juniors?
The short answer to that is both. So some aspects, level 2 and 3, have been paused, and the work on level 1 is still ongoing. So the Minister has just refreshed a group called just reappointed a group called the Professional Advisory Group, and that group is a group of experienced, current practicing or recently retired principals to provide the Minister with direct advice and guidance around the direction that NCA is taking, as well as a whole lot of work that's still happening in the Ministry. So we're in our first year of the new NCA Level 1 and co-requisites, and there are some teething issues that the sector are still having to work through. And so I would say that level 1 work is definitely still ongoing and is very dependent on the year 0 to 8 curriculum work that is happening preceding it, because for whatever reason, not wanting to point fingers at any of my primary or intermediate school colleagues, because it always backwards maps to the sort of first 100 days really, for whatever reason, what we do know is students that are coming to us in year 9, and this is a gross generalisation, but reasonably accurate in terms of my lived experience, they're coming to us in year 9 significantly behind where they need to be, or a decent population are. And so when they start with you in year 9 and they should be at level 5 of the curriculum, to throw a number at it, I've got a whole lot of kids that are just grasping level 2. And to put that in layperson's terms so you understand, moving up a curriculum level generally takes you about 18 months. So if you're turning up at high school and you've got to do your first year of qualification in year 11 and you are a couple of 2 or 3 year curriculum levels behind, that's 3 or 4 years worth of learning to catch up to the curriculum level that you should have been just to get into year 9, as well as being able to access that curriculum level for NCA level 1. So we're playing catch up at year 9 across the secondary space. And how that backwards maps, because I know you talk to my intermediate school colleagues up the road and they go, the kids that are coming to us in year 7, good grief, they're behind too. And then you talk to my primary colleagues and they'll go, well, the kids that come to us in year 0, and you mentioned, they literally aren't toilet trained and can't recognise the alphabet. So then you're going back to what's happening in early childcare, and the early childcare guys will be going, well, we're having to do a whole lot of stuff that parents have not done. So then you go back to the first 100 days and what's happening there. So where the issue needs to be repaired is a topic for ongoing debate, but we do need to do something to prepare students better in terms of literacy and numeracy as they move through those first 8 years of school.
Yes, well, just explain that to everybody, because it seems poorly understood by most parents and grandparents of kids at the moment. I can sit my NCA, I can pass NCA level 1, I can get the requisite credits, I could even get a merit, I suppose, overall. But the new literacy numeracy standards you've brought in, which are separate in some ways from each of those NCA subjects, I've got to pass them before what? I get NCA level 1, or before I'm allowed to leave school, or what?
Before you get NCA anything. And so there's always been a literacy and numeracy component of NCA It's existed from the outset, and you got that through passing standards in what would be your regular subject. So, putting it in simple terms, if I'm going into level 1 English, think for the older listener, the old school C English, if you did a traditional English course, that would be enough to get you literacy, because if you can pass all of that, you're probably literate. Similarly with maths, right? You pass your maths course, do all right, you're probably numerate. What we have identified through the course of the first couple of decades worth of NCA existing is that despite being able to function reasonably well in terms of accumulating credits and getting your 60, 80 credits that you need to get level 1 or level 2, there are some that were slipping through and not particularly functionally literate. And by functionally literate, when you look at the content of, say, those co-requisite exams for literacy and numeracy, you're talking about material like reading a bus timetable, looking at when movies are on at the movie theatre, filling out a form, that type of functional stuff that just makes life easier for you when you can do it. So they've created these co-requisites that are designed to be for functional literacy and numeracy, where the content itself is not what you or I would call, Michael, at a particularly high level, because it's about functional literacy and numeracy. But it appears that the context upon which that is being tried, namely a one-off high stakes, well, not one-off, it's a high stakes point in time digital exam, if you like, it's not sticking. And so we're not getting pass rates nationally, and it seems to be crossing the socio-economic divide, but we're not getting pass rates nationally that we need. And it's proving problematic, and it is also proving more burdensome for our priority learners, so our Māori Pacifica, those that experience disadvantage socioeconomically. For whatever reason, that digital exam space is proving too challenging.